Hey, so this video will be about quality and redundancy in your army lists for 9th Age. Um, so if you talk about quality and redundancy in lists, it's mostly going to be about, in my view, about where you can tailor your list in a way that you tune it better to well, either what's in the meta, so what other players around you use, or generally to just balance out your list better. So I got this picture of this person with a kind of an over-encumbered motorcycle. In 9th Age, you can do the same, where you just buff up your units to the extent that you get a similar situation where you can't really see the bases of the unit anymore. And in 9th Age, the problem is that you only have a certain amount of points that you can spend. So whilst in real life it might be advantageous to hang your entire motorcycle full with bananas, in 9th Age the metaphorical bananas are your points, and if they all go into one place, then it's quite likely that your list is not going to be as good as it could be. So the end result would be that you find that you'll struggle against some opponents just because you don't have the right tools in the right places anymore. So I looked at a lot of tournament lists, also from the ETC, and I picked out a couple that we can discuss for this video. So the first list we have is an Empire of Sun style list. It's a gunline type of list, and yeah, it's backed up by two big units of Imperial Guard. The funny thing is that it features 4 units of light infantry. These are units with crossbows. You can give them orders from the characters to get accurate. So they hit quite hard in terms of shooting. But the only backup in forms of artillery is a steam tank. So I thought that, yeah, this is definitely not how I would build this list. And then you have 2 units of Imperial Guard there. Each with a prelate that makes the unit also stubborn as long as they are alive. So why do I think that this is a good pick to show you why or how redundancy fits into this list? I believe, seeing this list, it seems to me that for a singles tournament it's not well suited, because it's really a list focused on getting a draw. Either by just not being able to play as many turns as you need to defeat this list, which is, I think, a big problem in tournaments in general. Yeah, you don't need 36 Imperial Guard in the Great Weapon unit for it to fill its purpose, and also you don't need 30 Imperial Guard in the other unit to get its purpose. Because what you want to do with these units in a traditional gunline sense is that the guns they are used to soften up your enemy, and then the combat units you have are normally units that can keep away the army of your opponent at a long distance, and just finish the kill once the enemy is a bit decimated. So blocks of Imperial Guard, I would say, even already don't really fit in there. And moreover, just such sturdy blocks with such a big model count. You're investing 770 points in the Imperial Guard alone, then you're adding 200 points of a prelate character and another 260 or 400 points for another character. So in the end, you're looking at a unit that's more than 1000 points. And most of the time in the game, it's not going to do anything, because, well, with this list, you're not going to just rush the enemy and seek him out. So it's really a shame of all the points invested. So I can see that in an ETC style tournament, this type of list is meant to just keep its points and not bleed any points. So in that type of format, it might be okay. But for a singles tournament, I would definitely reconsider this list. I would probably, the changes I would make is, since you still have some leeway in the characters, Mount one of the characters on a griffin, and then maybe fit in a knight commander instead of something else on a young griffin. And you could look into some Knights of the Sun Griffin instead of some of the Imperial Guard. This makes your list more versatile against more different opponents. You could also just split up the Imperial Guard into some blocks of flagellants, and I think, yeah, well, otherwise you could still add some chaff into the list because it's also quite light on chaff. And I think in that way you can just where you don't do the unpaired tournament play, you can really improve this list. So then let's go to the next one. This is a Demon Legion list. I'm not that well versed on Demon Legions, but I still picked this list out. So there's a couple of things that I can see in this list. So the Sentinel of Nukuya, he's just, I believe he has Protean magic, so he has, together with the Harbinger, he adds quite a lot of magic, so that's fine. Then you have the 15-man unit of Lemurs. I would say that this unit is actually too big because the unit is meant to just catch a charge, just survive for a couple of rounds, and not let the enemy go. I could imagine that you can just achieve the same with 10 Lemurs with this gift that they have -2 on the roll for instability. And if you pass your test, you're gonna not lose any Lemurs. So what often people do now is they field them too wide, so that the opponent doesn't have a lot of attacks on them. They have resilience 5, they have a 5+ Aegis. So they are quite tough to shift. So I think that this person overspent actually on these Lemurs. Where he could have spent more points is in the Myrmidons. So these guys, they have fight an extra rank. You're gonna field them probably 5 wide. So if you only have 15, then it's a shame to just lose a couple of them early because you're gonna lose attacks, you're gonna bleed attacks. So I don't know if Lemurs are point for point equally expensive as Myrmidons. But I would very gladly see a decrease in the amount of Lemurs and an increase into the amount of Myrmidons. And then the list also rounds out with 4 Veil Serpents, and I don't really know what they do in this list. So obviously you have the Mageblight Gremlins as chaff together with the Furies. Titan Slayer Chariot is against gigantic models. Well, the Thrashing Engine probably just keeps a bit of an overwatch. Or the Hope Harvester, I believe, with the shooting. And yeah, the rest of the list I wouldn't be too worried about. It's just that I don't really see how the Veil Serpents fit in with the rest of the list. And then let's go to the third list. So this is a Vampire Covenant list. This is an army that I know quite a bit better. So in terms of redundancy, there's a couple of things I would like to talk about here. So first of all, he has a vampire count, and he's a Strigoi Ghoul Lord. This is a good choice to just make your ghoul list. What you can sometimes see with Vampire Covenant is that people load a lot of points into their vampire count. So I've also seen, well, people in general probably have seen vampire count characters of over 1,000 points. I think generally this is not worth it. So one of the ways is to mount them on a Court of the Damned. If you run into double cannons, which can happen in single tournament play, or in some other way of your opponent being able to completely negate gigantic models, then you're in for a very tough match because you only field like 3,500 points against this 4,500 points minus cannons. And yeah, it's a bit of an eggs in all eggs in a basket play. But yeah, that's the type of deal with redundancy. It's very strongly related to all eggs in one basket. But the question you also ask with redundancy is it all worth it? So is this really necessary that I have a vampire count on a Court of the Damned, and how much more does this give me rather than just a normal any other model, basically? Which is why I like to play my Court of the Damned without any rider on top, because basically all of the benefits that you get from it are already supplied by the Court of the Damned itself. And sure, it's a bit easier to take down if it doesn't have the 4+8 save. But still, it's 5 wounds. You can still heal it back, and if you heal with the Necromancer, you can also heal 1 wound within 12 inches. So you can heal it twice as fast, like 2 wounds each time you cast a spell with the Necromancer. So if your opponent has a cannon, then well, it's still a problem for this thing, but probably it'll still get into combat and do what it is supposed to do. And that way it's more of a possible throwaway unit than if your entire army revolves around it. So some other things I didn't really like in this list is the 33 zombies. So I get that he has to get to his core points, which are 1125 for him because he has a bloodline in his army. But 33 zombies are not going to do anything more than just 20 zombies. So this is 65 points just wasted, basically. So I think I'd rather have seen a couple more die wolves. Or maybe just decreasing the ghouls a little bit and trying to fit in a second unit of ghouls, just of 15 ghouls. 15 ghouls are also that's a nice size just for a unit of ghouls, just to be active on the flanks. And then in this army he has a cadaver wagon, so this is also a bit of an indication, I would say, that this is also a list meant to play into the draw. So you have this Strigoi Ghoul Lord with a Hypnotic Pendant that gives you ghouls parry. You have a 5+ regeneration save from the ghouls, for the ghouls from the cadaver wagon. So that's really a sturdy unit to get through, provided that you don't run into any flaming attacks, because then they will just negate your regeneration. Coupled with some ghasts that are also very sturdy, and then you have the 2 Shrieking Horrors. So in the way this list is going to play out is that it's going to have the ghouls and the ghasts quite close together, and then the cadaver wagon behind. The vampire count general will be in the ghouls, and both of the Shrieking Horrors have to be within 12 inches of this vampire count in order to be able to march. So they have large bases. They really have large bases. So probably you'll run into the trouble of not being able to have them within 12 inches, both of them at the same time, I think. Or you would have to just first be with your vampire count within 12 inches of one of them, and then later in your turn, during your movement phase, you move the vampire count to another position, and then the other one is within 12 inches, so you can still march with it. But in this list, I think, yeah, in the draw list, in the mentality of getting a draw, these choices are good because you can just throw them out and then scream down whatever you find kind of scary in the enemy's army, and just the high damage output models you can just quickly get rid of. But in terms of getting what you invest, I think it's a bit of a poor choice for a single tournament, because yeah, you are sacrificing your Shrieking Horror in doing so, because you have nothing else in the list to complement the range of the Shrieking Horror. So they're really fire and forget missiles in this list. And it's difficult to play Shrieking Horrors in a very defensive way. And and I think they're a good pick in a draw list, especially with some evocation magic where you can just start sniping the enemy's characters um, and grind them down in that way. But yeah, just for a singles tournament, I wouldn't go for this list. Then we go to a bit of a funny one. So this is a Highborn Elf list. This was actually taken to the ETC. So it's a list with 2 mages basically, then 11 times 20 citizen spears and 4 times 10 lion guard. And I can very well imagine that this list plays very well into a lot of matchups, just because the citizen spears and the buffs of the master of the Canray Tower, they go together quite well actually. Because you have the regeneration, you have +1 strength, +1 toughness, and I believe also Raven's Wing. Raven's Wing also helps this list quite a bit. And then you have the 4 times 10 Lion Guard to deal with any kind of monster threat. So, yeah, whilst this would seem quite a bad list in terms of just trying to find an answer to anything in the opponent's army. It's definitely a kind of spiked list or focused list in the sense that it only has infantry, and well, the highest strength in most of the models is just strength 3. The Lion Guard have strength 6, obviously. But they're not there in the setup that you're going to be stubborn, or at least if you have the Lion Guard unit and you put the mage in, then yeah, that unit is going to be stubborn, but it's going to be quite easy to just kill the mage once he decides to go into one unit of Lion Guard and come in combat. So yeah, the funny thing I also just now notice is that the commander doesn't even have a shield or a great weapon. He just has a hand weapon. So this does indicate that this person thought about the role of this guy in his army. And I actually have to compliment him on this because he's not like, this is the type of thing that you want to do to optimize the list once you know how the list works. So he realized probably that his commander, he doesn't want to get in combat, and anything that's gonna hunt his commander is anyway gonna face a unit of citizen spears where the commander is in, or a unit of Lion Guard. So, for example, Pterodon riders that would try to just suicide into the unit that the commander is in are still going to be stricken down by the amount of attacks from the citizen spears or the Lion Guard. What you can also notice in this list is that the citizen spears, none of them have any command upgrades, and neither do the Lion Guard. I think this is a very good choice because the units themselves, they cost 240 points. And right now you're just flooding the playing field with 262 infantry models, and they're all Highborn Elves. So yeah, it's I think it's on paper a list that makes you go like, oh, this is just a funny attempt at trying to find something that is fun to play on the table, but in practice I think it might be quite scary, just because you have so much stuff coming at you, and with the minimized leadership for rallying that the Highborn Elves have, even decimated units of citizen spears are still going to rally on a 5. 5, I think, from the general. So the half leadership of the general would be 5, yeah. So for minimized, this is quite a reasonable roll still. So you have to kind of pursue all of these units that you're going to break. You're going to end up in places where you don't want to end, and you might just actually get stricken down by a unit of 20 citizen spears. So in terms of redundancy, well, there's not a lot that could be redundant here. And I think the inclusion of the Lion Guard is really good to help deal with the gigantic models on the other side of the table. So this list is kind of interesting also in a way that it makes certain choices more interesting than others. And yeah, you guys might be thinking that I'm just rambling over this for already way too long of time, but if you consider what kind of weaknesses some units have and what kind of mitigation mechanisms you have for these weaknesses, you might think about some bolt throwers, for example. Bolt throwers are great at just snipping off a couple of wounds every single turn, but their weakness is that once they get into combat, it's gonna be well, the end of the bolt thrower basically. So you might want to have some babysitting unit or some character on an eagle to just fly around and countercharge any threat on your bolt thrower or any other way of protecting it. This list doesn't need this, not because the units are not vulnerable, but because you're just delivering them in such big excess that yeah, your opponent really well, you don't really care if one or two or five of your spear units are going to be gone at the end of the game. So I hope that my insights helped you a little bit into your further list building. And if you agree with me or disagree with me, please let me know in the comments below. And also let me know if you like this type of videos or if you'd rather see some more battle reports. Thank you and see you for the next time.